Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. We've been interviewing people for last year or so that people have been in the council for 30 years. You're coming up on your 30th anniversary here this fall. So I just wanted to take time to thank you, and I'd like to share some of your stories and how you became a member of the council, the whole thing. So can you just tell me a little bit about your background and how you became an adjuster?
Well, it's a father-son story, My dad, in 1961, started with a place called Fleener and Son as a auto appraiser. He worked there and started doing trucks. And by the time he left there, he was the only one doing trucks and trailers and things like that, heavy equipment. And he left to go to a dealership to be a service manager. And the dealership didn't make it. It folded. Dad came home and he said, Angie, what am I going to do with my life? And so they got an old tabletop out of the attic and some file cabinets, and in the living room is where he started. And that was in 1971. In 1972, I graduated from high school. And, lost, of course. Dad said, I don't have the money to send you to college. You don't have the grades to go to college, and I need help. That's how it got started, all right? And at that time, Dad was doing automobile appraisals, and it's just appraisals now. And the name of his company was Bob Kinder and Son Appraisers. And so I started doing cars and this and that and the other, and then I would do a truck now and then. He just didn't, back then, there wasn't the volume of truck claims that we have today. So as it developed, I liked the big trucks, trailers and things like that. And I didn't like dealing with car shops. I just didn't like it. I didn't, so I kind of just developed that business along, going on. And that kind of became my niche in the company. Dad's company still had an auto department. And as you well know, you came aboard in the truck division. And at one time, he had several truck adjusters, or appraisers,
Oh, yeah.
None of us were really adjusters back then. Well, during that time, an old guy named Herm Boyer, who's a member of the Claims Council, was at a place called, I'm going to tell you, it was Truck Claim Service out in Denver. They did all of Occidental's work. Mm-hmm. And he kind of took fancy to me, And Herm, you'll know from history, he was a rough old guy. And he kind of moved me along on adjusting, just now you need to go out here and do this, and you need to investigate that, and so on and so forth. And right along about that time, there was a guy named Ed Waters, who's also a member of the Claims Council, down at American Southern Insurance Company. And he also, he said, here's a young guy, and the young guy's we got to bring young guys up. We're old gray hairs, just like you're looking at now, And so with American Southern and Herman Boyer, by golly, I got started doing adjusting. And at that time, you just learned, it's hands-on experience is all it is. That's it.
Right.
And so I continued to develop that business, and we had a really good show going, and both of those guys said to me, you need to join the National Truck and Heavy Equipment Claims Council.
Did you even know what that was?
What's that,
Yeah.
And so I went to 2 or 3 meetings, and I think my first meeting was with Bill Lyle, who's a past president, and Bill worked for Dad. and a guy named Jack Evers from Northland Insurance Company. And we were in Florida together. And again, we all just palled around, teamed around, and I didn't know any of these guys. You know, to be honest with you, I just didn't know them. We didn't do business with them or anything. But once I was down there, we started getting a little bit of business from them. And so as it developed, they basically told me, you got to get joined. You got to get. And I started doing work for Canal, a little bit of Carolina. You know, and back then those were two big companies. They were big players in the Claims Council. So I made application and went down to Tennessee to Memphis. And at that time, there was no testing. Claims Council was basically a social organization. It was an organization where company members and independent adjusters who never see each other get to congregate and fellowship and tell lies and war stories. I mean, that's just what it was.
Right.
And I went down there and I worked for Bob Kinder and Son Appraisers. Well, the adjusting business was a whole different business in the Claims Council's mind. And the Claims Council didn't cotton to appraisers. I didn't make it. I got voted down. So I said, well, you know, it's the way it goes, and didn't think anything about it. And Ed Waters said, no, John Hewitt said, now John Hewitt was now at American Southern. Mm-hmm. Ed had passed away, and he said, you're going to join. You are going to join. So I put another application in, you know, and so we went to Pittsburgh meeting. Mm-hmm. And I'm there at the Pittsburgh meeting, and got to remember, this is a good old boys club back then. You know, mm-hmm. You didn't have to have credentials, you know. You had to be in the crowd.
Right.
And a guy named David Potts came up to me there at that meeting, and he said, I think he was a secretary or the treasurer or something at the time, and he said to me, I'll never forget it, he said to me in the bar, he said, why don't I just send your money back to you? We don't want your kind in here. Again, referring to being an appraiser. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, you don't say that to me. You just, you know, so the determination is on, you know. Yep. And I got voted down there. And I turned right around, I think at that time, I'm going to say this, and it's probably not the exact thing, but I think there's a two-year waiting period or something, you know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I re-upped my application. And by the time I had done that, Mike Kramer had made application. Mm-hmm. And so in 1988, they're going to have a test for you to come in. We're going to test you and see how much you know. And it was in Fresno, California. And I think it's a Holiday Inn, a big Holidome or something, you know, out there. And there's one of the things I'm going to remember and tell you guys. You know, 100 miles away from the Painted Forest and all these sights and everything to see, I was so wired up. I never left the hotel for the entire meeting. So we go into the testing, and it was a great guy, Ralph Reese, and a guy named Dick Ferretti, who were the company people. And then the independent person was Dave Serafini in the room. And we're going along, having, I don't know how they do the testing nowadays, but this was all verbal, okay? Dialogue. So we're sitting there in the room, and I'm answering the questions, and, you know, just back and forth. And actually, I got pretty relaxed about things, because I thought, you know, I thought I was doing pretty well. Mm-hmm. And so Dave Serafini, if anybody remembers him, he was a gearhead. You know, he's got race boats and race cars and everything, and he starts going off on a Caterpillar engine and about the timing gear and all this and that and the other. And I finally said to Dave, I said, Uncle, I said, if I need to know that stuff, I just don't know it. and he goes, hell, Kinder, you passed a long time ago. I was just seeing how far you could go. and the weight of the world came off my shoulders at the time. So still had to go through the vote, you know, and I passed, and I've been in there since 1988. Immediately after that, John Hewitt came up to me, and he said, you're going to be an active member of the Claims Council. I'm putting you on a committee. So I started in the bylaws committee. And so the older guys will remember this stuff. I started on the bylaws committee, and there's 3 of us. There's a chairman and 2 below. And then the chairman drops off and they move up and they elect another guy or put another guy on there. So the first meeting I go to, we haven't talked. All between meetings, we haven't talked about anything about bylaws. I don't even have a copy of the bylaws. And the guy, the chairman back then, stood up and he said, I don't have a report, nothing going on with the bylaws. And so, okay. And so between the second meeting, now I'm the middleman, I'm the number 2 guy. And so we get to the next meeting and the guy stands up and he says, nothing going on with the bylaws, don't have a report. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be chairman next year. I'm not going to stand up. I'm not going to be embarrassed to stand up and say I've done nothing, you know. So I got busy and I actually got with John Hewitt, and we worked a lot with him back then, and went through the bylaws and so on and so forth. Knew nothing about bylaws, and I knew nothing about bylaws, and but I had a dang report. The next meeting, I had a report ready for us, and since that time to today, I've been on the board, I've been on committees, I've been on the board again. I think I've been secretary twice, and now because of my son James coming in, Ed Williams comes to me, and Betty came to me and said, you got a vested interest in the apprentices. You're going to run the program. Just whenever I want to get off of something. So now I'm back into that. But for, well, it's been 30 years, like you said.
Yeah, time flies. You know, it's just like hard to believe it's been 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you know, the business has changed.
Oh yeah.
Back then, we pretty much did fairly much. A lot of it was instruction from the insurance company, but we actually did the adjusting part of it, you know. But during that time, as a National Truck and Heavy Equipment Claims Council adjuster, independent adjuster, you are an appraiser first. You have to be an appraiser to appraise, and then you switch hats and wear an adjuster hat, and you apply the policy to the settlement. So I'm still an appraiser, you know, after all of that. And again, the Claims Council's changed. A lot of the guys have gone to, we do an awful lot of London business, where we are real adjusters. We adjust for London. We dictate coverages to them. We go completely through the claim, the appraisal of it, and then the adjusting of it, and settle the claim, and then handle the subrogation after that. The domestic companies have changed. You're now, you know, they basically hire you as an appraiser. That's what they do. They hire you as an appraiser. You are an independent adjuster if you're in the Claims Council, but they hire you as an appraiser for their eyes and ears in the field. That's what they do. and then they go in-house and apply the policy to it. And then they may come back and say, you settled a claim, or most times with the domestic companies, they settled a claim. And you don't hear about it anymore. So the complexion has changed. I'm assuming that the testing has changed to fit the now, the modern times. But it's a good business. It's a good business. You're not gonna get rich off of it, but it's a good business, and I still enjoy it.
Yeah, you've been active, as you said, from the word go, since you've been a member of this council.
I have not.
It's always something you've been involved with, and
there's not been a committee, or there's not been a time when I had the space of a year where I've not been serving on something, whether it be bylaws or testing or education, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Board of directors.
yeah, and it's funny that a lot of people that are part of this organization, they're a little, I don't know if it's bashful or just really hesitant to go that extra step to be on a committee or whatever board, and that they're afraid of, all the extra work. But once you become part of whatever committee or whatever you're doing, you find yourself enjoying it. You enjoy working, doing whatever it is. When I was on the scholarship committee, and now I'm on the board, the PR, all that stuff. You think that it's going to be cumbersome, and it's going to be more time than I have. I got all this other stuff going on. You find time to do it because you really enjoy or really are into being a member. It makes you feel good, and you become more involved. You get to know people more. You find yourself, you get to know more people because you're more active.
Exactly. The interaction that you get.
It's key.
And I'll tell you too, serving on the committees and so on and so forth is a good thing for a person to do that's a member of the Claims Council, because every day we're doing in our jobs the repetitious work.
Yeah.
No two claims are alike, but the process is. And when you take a day off of your job to work on whatever committee or whatever board, whatever it is you're doing, you're away from that other business. And so you enjoy doing what you're doing because you're doing something else.
Yeah.
But it's still, I like to think for the good of,
Definitely.
The Claims Council has gone through times where, quite frankly, I thought they were useless at points and times in my life. But in the last, 10, 12 years or something, we've got good seminars at these meetings. And if you go in there and you sit in a seminar, you don't remember it all, but you take away something.
Yep.
One of the most important things is you go through the Claims Council, you're a member there, and you get an oddball piece of equipment. My best example is cattle trailers. I get one a year, okay, anymore. Now Bill Lyle's going. He used to send me out, but I get cattle trailers. And, I can write the panels and I can do this and that and the other, but how much time does it take?
Right.
And familiarity. Leon Brownlee, you just call him. And so you've got resources within the council. Dump trailers. If anybody has dump trailers and they have trouble with them, they call me. We're in that neck of the woods, and so we've done so many of them that we can assist somebody who doesn't do them. We're having trouble now. All of us are having trouble writing good sheets because of the way the vehicles are built. We're having terrible times with these DEF systems. Okay? And so we come to these meetings, or we run into a situation, you call another guy, one of your buds, somebody that you socialize with when you're here. And it gives you a chance to run it by somebody else and maybe get a different perspective on things. I used to do that in adjusting a lot of times. You get in there and you scratch your head about how you're going to settle this claim or that claim. And Mike Kramer and I used to do this once in a while, called each other and say, I got this dang claim in it. Yeah, I got to get it done, and what are we going to do? And maybe he doesn't even help out, but he kind of soothes it over. So you have that resource within the council, which I think is good.
Yep.
I think it's good. The council does have some problems. They got some problems, but I think they're trying to correct them. One of the problems is when I came in, I didn't have a gray hair on my head. And I look around the room and there's 30 gray-haired guys and 4 with, like me, no gray hair. Well, now I'm one that's gray hairs, And you look around the room and we don't have anybody young coming into the council. Fortunately, with the apprentice program, I think we are. We seem to be getting more people coming in. I believe that's good.
Oh, definitely.
Don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a good thing for the council to get young people coming in. We seem to be getting more companies coming in, and the companies that are coming in are the departments of the companies have a truck division type thing. It's not just a multi-line that this guy's handling a truck claim. So we're getting more specialized people, is what I'm saying.
And the companies are realizing that it's not just the good old boys getting down there just to party.
Right.
When we know we can come down to have fun, there's nothing wrong with that. But we offer so much more. So much more than we did when you first came in.
Exactly. It's come from just being a total social club to an educational club.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that because these meetings aren't cheap. They cost you a lot of money to go to these meetings, and you feel like I can't, as an independent, the money comes right out of my pocket. You can't go to these meetings and spend that kind of money and not come away with something that you're going to be able to use in your business. You just feel that way. A lot of guys, though, still come to the meetings just to sit in the bar and talk with each other and tell lies and war stories, as I say, and we all hammer over these claims that, do you remember this guy? And
yeah, but even then we learn something. Even when we're at the, you're at the bar or in the restaurant or wherever, you still, there's something, you're going to end up talking about something that, that everybody's willing to share. It's not like, well, I'm not talking to him because he's right up the road from me and he's my competitor and that kind of thing. That's kind of gone away a little bit, or quite a bit.
This is something else that the Claims Council had that is, I believe, has changed, at least to a certain extent, for the better. I remember there was a guy in Indiana that applied to the Claims Council. And one of our older members, he's gone now, came up to me here at this meeting in this hotel and said to me, what are you going to do about that? And I said, do about what? He said, well, about Terry making an application. And I said, nothing. Well, why am I going to do something about that? And he said, well, he's in your back door. Well, I mean, if you can pass the test, that's okay. Well, the guy in your back door, you know what he does and how he does it. And I didn't have a fear. He wasn't going to pass the test anyway. So, but that was a situation where other people that have somebody else in their back door will go around, and this was particularly back then, would go around and PR against the guy coming in, whether he was qualified or not. I think with the testing committee and everything else, that's kind of gone away. Now, that one individual may vote no,
Right.
but there's the rest of us that are going to evaluate off
If they're
of.
qualified, then they get in. If they're not, then maybe they don't
Exactly,
pass.
exactly. And when it comes to, they're going to take your business. Nobody takes your business. You give your business up. I mean, that's just the fact. If you're working for people and you're doing them a good job, they're going to stay with you. I have never worried about that. I'm just not worried about it. I'll never forget that my dad and I had a rough time, and I had to split. We had to split. It just wasn't. It was going to be one or the other of us, right? We had to split. And so when I did, everybody was thinking, we're at each other to get the business. Well, I didn't take any of his business when I left. I took the business I had developed. And my thoughts were always, I don't need to know what Joe, Tom, Dick, and Harry are doing.
Houseman.
No, I don't need any.
I don't need to know what those guys are doing. I need to keep my nose to my grindstone and worry about my work. I don't need to be worried about your work,
Exactly.
So, and I think if more people adopted that attitude of, make yourself better, then it kind of takes care of itself, Maybe it's human nature that has people going behind each other's back and stabbing each other in the back and, all that kind of stuff. But
I know some people are that way, and you're never going to change them.
Yeah, you're going to change them, or you're not going to change them.
Right.
So, but I enjoy being a member of the Claims Council. I like the activities with them. Pretty much, there's some things that are boring. Listen, we're doing a policy seminar this afternoon.
I believe, I think we could all relate to that.
Yeah.
If you're reading anything on policy, especially when you're doing your CE and you're doing all this, and it'll put you to sleep.
Put you to
It's
sleep.
not the most exciting stuff to read.
Oh.
Or sit in a classroom.
Yeah, and the continuing education, I always think is pretty good, except for with our licenses. I'm licensed in Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. And other than the seminars and the things that we've put on here at the Claims Council, my continuing education doesn't have anything but a pickup truck on it. This last time I just went through in March my continuing education for the year. I can adjust roof claims, I can adjust flood claims, I can adjust fire claims.
Nothing to do with the trucking industry.
Not a thing that I do in my industry, So where do you get that stuff that you do? Everybody's got to remember that even though it appears to be a big business, trucking and the insurance industry and trucking, it's a niche. It's really a small group of people.
It is.
I mean, you get right down to it. How many independents are in here? Probably 70, maybe, roughly. Let's say 60, 70 out of 350 million people in the country. Okay, how many people in the insurance industry that work for companies like Northland are educated?
Okay.
Huh?
Good to go again. I don't know what we lost or what we didn't get, but
That
we'll
must,
just keep
that
on.
must be a bad card.
I don't know what it is, but anyway, we want to pick up where we left off, or I decided what we had recorded and didn't have recorded, but
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's it in a nutshell. I'm a fan of the Claims Council. There's things you just don't like, man. There's things you just don't like, but you muddle through them, and in everyday life, there's things you don't like.
yeah.
And there's things you don't agree with. People here, there's some rivalries that go on in any organization, and there's people who you don't like them and they don't like you, that kind of thing. But you just have to go on by it. So the by and large of it is the council's. I think it's good.
Yeah, it is. You made the interview process pretty good. I really haven't had to ask you a whole lot of questions because you kind of went over everything I was going to touch on. So, made everything easy. But the only thing I wanted to ask you, is there any stories or anything that sticks out in your mind that you'd like to share about the council, or something that happened that we don't have to edit?
No, we don't. We don't have. Oh, we've had some fantastic fall meetings. Mm-hmm. In fact, my wife and I, we used to go to the fall meetings, and we'd take a few days on the front end or the back end to go to places like Seattle and San Diego and Boston and Florida and places like that. So that's been a good thing. Again, everybody's concerned about cost and everything, but that's kind of a nice thing to be able to do. One time they were talking about going to Yellowstone, which I would love to do, that kind of thing. I've been able to see other parts of the country because of those that I probably wouldn't have done. Now we seem to be more concerned with going to places for our fall meeting that are, less intriguing, and I think I would like to see us get back to doing the fall meeting in a place where it's cool, The spring meeting, the business meeting like we've got here, this place has been the greatest thing. I mean, you jump on an airplane, you're here. Anybody from anywhere in the country can be here today on one flight.
Yeah.
And we come in, we do our business, and we get her done, and then we go home. I think that should stay that way. I like that. So, as far as stories, the only stories that I have are really, they're good ones. The riverboat down in New Orleans. I went to New Orleans. I'll never go back to New Orleans again. Didn't have a real desire to go there in the first place, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a place I didn't get to see, and that kind of thing. The New Orleans meeting was kind of a fiasco. And Bill Lyle and I have been friends for a long, long time. And he's a good guy. He was president at the time. And the Claims Council didn't have a lot of money at the time. And they went in debt, and, so on and so forth. And the next meeting we were there was some discussion going on about, this and that and the other about it. And I stood up and said I want to have an accounting and all that kind of stuff. And Bill Lyle says, "Kinder, shut up and sit down." And I stood right back up and I said, "I'm a member of the Truck and Heavy Equipment Claims Council, and I'm entitled to have an accounting." And Bill and I got into it for a little while there, a year or so. But like I say, he's still a guy and that kind of thing. That's a story in itself, I suppose. Beyond that, there's, we all have different stories. Most of the stories that come out of here are surrounding our business,
right,
with claims that we do you know, you had a tough claim with him, and you know, or you know, I had a claim on a guy from, I'm going to say New Mexico. I'm going to say that, and he'd had another claim with another adjuster, and he said, "I hope you're not like that goddamn guy." This, you know, like that, you know, those things. But as far as stories, no,
Or fondest memory of, you know, other than being the first, you know, when your first meeting as a member, you know, was that something that, you know, that you didn't know what to expect, or you walked in?
well, I'll tell you one thing that I have this on my credenza in the office. I was doing a lot of work with the Claims Council, and the first time I got a little trophy, one of them little trophies, you know.
A participation trophy?
Well, you know, it's for
Yeah.
all your efforts.
Oh yeah,
you know,
for
whatever, you know, those, they give them out every
Yeah.
once in a while. I got one of those, and it's like, wow, tears came to my eyes, you know.
made you feel special.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, I will tell you this. I do have the story. In 1993, I'm going to say, it was around that time, we had a meeting. And I put it on in Indianapolis. Back then, we didn't have a committee, or we didn't have Richard Bruce that did these things.
Right.
So if you went to so-and-so city, so-and-so put the meeting on.
Right.
And I put this meeting on. And everything went smooth. I put a lot of effort into it. And we had field trips to Cummins Engine and so on and so forth. And we had good education and so on like that. And I thought the meeting went real well. Well, now comes the banquet. And I'm sitting up in the front. They had a table for well, they still do.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and we have dinner, everything goes, and then they want me to speak. Now, I know all you guys. I know all of you. And I stand up there, and I'm on the podium above everybody, and I'm looking out over the crowd, and I'm like, and as you know from this interview, I don't have any trouble talking.
No.
I never have any trouble talking. I choked up.
Yeah.
All the people there with their suit and ties on, some with tuxes and everything else, and I'm supposed to say something, and I choked up over that. My wife, she during putting that together, there were a lot of battles. And she did all of the arrangements for the catering and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's what she did. I mean, she did weddings,
Right.
You know, and of course I'm saying, "Have you got this covered? Just I've got it covered." You know, and you know, listen, we can't have failures. You know, we can't have problems. And so that was a tough year for us.
You know exactly what Richard's going through every time he has a meeting, because
No.
you've been there and done that.
Oh yeah. So, and you know, making arrangements and all that kind of stuff. Because back then, I felt like you want to do the meeting, you want it to be the best meeting it's ever been, and it was trying times in the Kinder household back then. And that was one of the things that and then I stood up and it was a good meeting. Nothing went really bad.
No.
But I just like froze. And anyway.
Well, yeah, so it's been, let's say it's been 30 years almost. Hard to believe it's been 30 years.
Yeah, this fall.
You know, it just, yeah, it does. It flies by so fast. And remember your parents telling you won't believe how time flies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
You find out they were right.
And all of a sudden you're there, you know?
Yeah. So I want to thank you for taking the time to do this and sharing your you know your stories and how you became a member, and I really appreciate it. And everybody else will be able to look at check out the interview and learn a little something from it, because everybody has a little bit different, not totally, but they have you know, what the experiences they've been through, and I really appreciate you taking the time. Anything else you want to add?
I just want to say that I hope for all the members, company members and everybody else, that we're in a business nowadays where we're shitting and getting. I mean, you know, we're moving fast. And a lot of the younger people come in and they haven't had the experience. You can have all the education in the world, but if you haven't had the experience, you don't know. So the young people have to fall on their face, and the claims council people, the members, companies, and independents need to be there to pick them up and dust them off and say, go at it again.
Yeah.
You know, and
Because we're all human, we make mistakes. You know,
well, the best of us,
Yep.
the
Yep.
best of us make mistakes.
Yep.
So in these times, which probably with computer systems and all that kind of stuff, it only gets faster and faster and faster. I would ask all the members for patience and forgivingness.
Well,
That's what-
thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, bud.